Welcome to our podcasts, Wise Black Nanas, Life Coaching Between the Dash. Hey, what do you do when it feels like life has thrown you a few too many challenges, knocked you down, in the bed, hard to talk about even with your best friend challenges, and it feels like the challenges are winning? Wouldn't it be nice to hear from your Nana? Or a stand-in Wise Black Nana? Well, they are Wise Black Nanas, Sharla Walker, PhD, and Joanne Early, MS, two mature women with over 70 plus years of combined coaching and mentoring, professional human resources, and business experience. The wonderful news is, these Wise Black Nanas are still living and learning about this amazing life, about resilience and grit, gratitude and appreciation, and the extraordinary power of love and friendships, being positive and supportive, and learning from others. Welcome to Wise Black Nanas. Let's listen in.
Hi, I'm Joanne Early, and we are Wise Black Nanas. I want to just welcome you to this podcast. Hey, on this podcast, we talk about our lived experience, things that we've lived in the past, things that we are currently living, and I hope things that we will be around to live some more. We're just two everyday, very mature Black women, and we just want to share our lives with you. Hey, and wow, do we ever have a lot to talk about of our past experience? Some of those times that we, like I said, are currently living that we think is relevant very much today. Dr. Sharla?
Hi, this is Dr. Sharla M. Walker, PhD, the other half of Wise Black Nanas. And I'm so glad to be with you today, and thankful that Joanne is with us as well. We talk about so much, and we reflect so much on life experience, and we have conversations, and we withdraw other stuff that we may have forgotten over our lifetime. But understand that these are our views, they're our life experience, and they're issues that we've lived, confused by, or we let go. Joanne?
All right. So you know what? We think it is virtually impossible if you live in this country at this moment and don't know that we are nearing the end of a very long political campaign. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. We're going to share with you what we think about voting. It's ours to keep. Notice I didn't say it's ours to lose. So throughout earlier podcasts, many of you know, or we've already talked about, that Dr. Sharla and I grew up during the Civil Rights era, 50s, 60s, early 70s, that whole period of time. It was a period of time of segregation and integration. Some of the most significant events that changed this country forever occurred. And many were about the right to vote, the right to have a say in the governance of our country, the way money and resources are used. That is why we vote, to have some say over our destiny, our jobs, housing opportunities, and our personal lives. So some of the things that we'll be talking about, a little bit historic, but you know me and my love of history. Hey, you just got to have just a little bit of historical context. And y'all know me, I love, love, love a history lesson. So what do you think, Dr. Sharla? You think that might be a place to start?
Oh, God, yeah. This has been a topic that we've been discussing over the last probably 3-4 weeks, right? And how we were going to go about it. We're going to reflect on, where we were when we were, when voting arrived, and I don't think we were born, not in 1864. But anyway, just kind of reflecting and just having that conversation with Joanne brought back some memories of me actually being involved in some of the voting situation. I never realized that I had, and
Right.
that was quite awakening for me.
Right.
I even though Joanne and I are from the same era, I won't say our age, but we're from the same area. We experience two different types of race issues or um, voting issues than most people. I was born in California, and Joanne was born in the deep South, Tampa, Florida. So her experience, it enlightens me because it's like, really? You saw that happen? I never saw it happen. I saw it happen on TV. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and how the things that we have done professionally and personally have contributed to our life as far as being excited about voting and making sure that people are voting. Joanne?
Right, right. But before we do that, I would like to take us a little back down memory road, down our historical path here, just to set the stage for, where we are, I think, today. Again, both Dr. Sharla and I grew up during the civil rights era, and we have lots of those stories. But I'm going to take us back even farther than that. I promise I won't take a long time in doing that. After the Civil War, there were some amendments that were introduced and ratified, meaning that means approved, that had to do with the end of slavery. The end of slavery, the rights for the former slaves, their ability to just exist and become citizens and to vote. So there were amendments 13, 14, and 15. Those were known as Reconstruction amendments because it had all to do with slavery, citizenship, and, as I mentioned earlier, voting rights. So I will mention specifically the 15th Amendment, which dealt specifically with voting rights for slaves and former slaves. And that was in 1869. The date here is, I just want you to think about it, 1869. Former slaves and those that were, had anything to do with slavery, looked like could have been a slave at some time, were given certain rights. But were those rights really enacted the way that they were designed to be? They were not. And that's what brought about the next 100 years of Jim Crow and discrimination, particularly against Black people. So come on down the road a little further down. We had 1921, which is when women, because prior to that, only men were allowed to vote. Only men were allowed to vote. And girlfriends out there, we weren't, as women, allowed to vote until 1921. So again, all of that history, all of that stuff is, kind of working for us. So then we keep going through the years, still like people forced with Jim Crow, inability to vote, having to take all kind of tests, having to pay money just for the opportunity to get the right that we were all promised in those earlier amendments. So this whole period of time, very, very turbulent, very, very difficult period. To say that it was difficult, that isn't even the right word. It was horrendous, actually, for Black people, the way that people were treated just because they wanted the right to vote. So here we come to the civil rights movement, 50s, 60s. All of us have memories of stories that we either studied in school or heard about or our parents talked to us about. We all know Rosa Parks is or was. We all remember the story of the bombing of the church in Alabama, the little girls that were waiting for Sunday school that were bombed. The March on Washington, we remember Dr. King and the I Have a Dream speech. The marching across the Edward Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, the rise of Martin Luther King, the rise of Malcolm X, the assassinations that also occurred during that period. Very, very turbulent period of time. Very, very turbulent period of time. So that brings us to after the John F. Kennedy assassination in 1963. That brings us to the Voting Rights Act. Well, first, it's the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and out of that came the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And that whole act was created to provide nationwide protection for voting rights. I'll say that again, 1965, to provide nationwide protection for voting rights for people of color, Black people in particular. So I pause here because earlier I mentioned that there was an 1869 constitutional amendment that guaranteed the right to vote. So here we are, almost 100 years later, and we still have a Voting Rights Act. So that, if that doesn't give you a sense of how long and how arduous this journey has been just for the right to vote, then, as I said before, you have to be hiding under a rock somewhere. So after that happened, what happens next that's significant to voting? We have 1971, when the voting age was changed in this country from 21 to 18 years old. It was during that period that I came of age. In fact, I voted in my first election during that time. My candidate didn't win, but I still voted. It was the very first time I was able to vote. And I can say without a doubt that I have voted in every national election since that time, and probably most local elections. How about you, Dr. Sharla? When do you remember when you
Oh,
voted
wow.
the first time?
Just listening to you and thinking about what a difference, what a difference, we experience such difference, and I'm awed by it. One thing for sure is you were in the deep south, and I was not.
Yeah.
So my realized being touched by it was more of a distance than for you because you were right there. You worked at a counter, and you were subject to different kinds of things from people that were unkind. Where
Yes.
where I was protected by my grandmother and my great grandmother. The only thing that I can recall is that we did go to the back of the bus when we got on the bus. That's really all I can say
Really?
that I remember about, and that sounds so sad.
No, it doesn't. It just, no, it
It
doesn't. It's just
sounds
a
so
detriment
sad, but
where you grew up and what your experience was.
but that's how I grew up, and that is, it's just shocking. I think what's really shocking is that I didn't really understand what it meant to breach on others as others had breached on us.
Mm.
And I recognized that when we were volunteered to be bused
Yes.
across town to an all
Yeah.
white school.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I thought it was going to be fun. It's going to be great. It's going to be an opportunity for lots of learning. And how naive was I?
Yeah.
We were met at the bus by the parents and some of the students with hate in their eyes, signs, and why are they taking up our student seats, and
Well,
just a lot of things that I didn't understand. I was just there to learn. But what I didn't realize was part of my learning was learning how to navigate
yep.
through this slime. So that was a lesson. So, I mean, it was so simple as they wanted our boys to play basketball and
Hmm.
football.
Right.
Our girls could not be their cheerleaders or their letter girls.
Ah,
So how fair was that? Or run track or play tennis or any of those delicate things that they did.
well,
So I learned a lot. Um, I do feel that I got a better education from those teachers that didn't have a bias or didn't show a bias.
Yeah,
Um, they really helped those who wanted to learn. And fortunately, there were quite a few that wanted to learn.
right.
Now, if you go to that same school that I came from, which was predominantly black in a black neighborhood across the railroad tracks, it is probably 80% white now. How the tables have turned.
Yeah, how the times change, huh?
Yeah, um, my grandson graduated from that school, and I was like, there were hardly any. I was surprised that there were blacks, but not as many as I thought.
Now, was
Our
that a
big old country
result of
school
the
is 100,
neighborhood change?
112.
Was that a result of the neighborhood changing over, or was it a result
The
of
the neighborhood
busing or
the
what?
neighborhood actually did change, uh, because that school was there in the middle of what we call the projects, and a lot of the projects got torn down.
Ah,
A lot of homes got torn down for the freeway. Um, some of the homes got torn down for new developments, which till this day um, have not been developed. My old school still exists,
right.
but the new school, the old school with the pillars and the columns, is gone.
Yeah,
But they have the new school,
got
so
it.
that was kind of my learning of that. I didn't get the experience of seeing people pushed or forced to eat stuff they didn't want to eat, or being smashed, or dogs or anything. I saw that on the news, and I wondered why my elders, they would be around the TV, the black and white antenna TV, discussing that. And when kids would come in, they say, "You guys go to the back bedroom," or whatever. So I never really got to see that until later on in life.
Got it.
And a lot of that has been through movies
Yes,
and books, and just horrific things that have happened.
right,
So
right.
I don't know if being protected was the right thing, but I guess my protectors thought that it was.
Well, I think to a large degree, whether you call it protecting or just not sharing and passing down the information of what happened, to us that grew up, during that period. I think it's just a matter of your family's view and, kind of what your experience was. I think, and we agree that it was important to do a program like this because we've got so many of our listeners out there that, very similar to you, grew up in a very different place in a very different time. And other than what they've seen in, the TV, movies, et cetera, whatever, they have no real concept of what happened. So again, for all our young hipsters out there that are listening, we're here to tell you that it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago that not only was there civil rights events that occurred that happened to many of us still living today. Ask your grandparents, ask your older aunts and uncles what their experience was or what their parents' experience was. Be interested enough to learn a little bit more about your history. We're just trying to ignite some of that, in all of us. And for those of us that may not have family members that you can ask, just do some research, do some quick research on Reconstruction amendments and read how long ago those laws have actually been on the books.
Yeah, read, learn.
Yes. And how many efforts have been taken to keep former slaves and their descendants from having the very rights, the right to vote, the thing that we say, oh, I don't have time. Oh, my vote doesn't count. Oh, I'm not going to wait in that hot sun, to cast my ballot. Oh, I don't know what happened to the ballot that came in the mail. All that we're doing is just saying to us, let's reconnect with our history. Let's look at where we've come from, so that we don't end up back in those same places again. So that's what this program is about. It's not to drag you through some old history, but it's trying to get you to understand that there is a connection between that history and the current history that we are living today. We are living it today. Our struggle for the
That's
right.
so true. That's so true. And it's if you don't think that is, just take a look at Facebook. There's all kind of madness on Facebook that
Yeah,
just makes you want to go, "Is this really happening?"
right,
Yes, it is really
right.
happening,
It
and people
is really
believe
happening.
it.
Yes, we have so many examples out there. Women and girls have lost a right that we've had for 50 years because now our Supreme Court is controlled by these ultra-conservative activist judges that feel like they have a right to tell women, girls, or just women basically what we can do with our bodies. We have had that right for 50 years. But because we didn't vote, we don't show up because we don't have time or our vote isn't going to count. This is the kind of thing that happens. This is the kind of thing that happens. And we cannot sit still and let this continue to happen.
And the other thing, Joanna, is that somebody else we hear somebody else will do it,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's usually no one.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we know our political environment is polarized. And we know, or don't think, historically, even though you hear people say, oh, this is the worst it's ever been. Oh, I don't remember. Oh, when it's been this bad. It's been bad before. It's been bad before. Anytime human people have dogs and fire hoses trained on them, that's pretty darn bad. Anytime you try to walk across a bridge for the right for people to be able to vote and you have horses that run you down, that's pretty darn bad. But we don't have to look that far back. Anytime we have someone that refuses to leave office and refuses that he lost an election and sits back and let a mob attack the US Capitol as they are confirming votes, that's pretty doggone bad. And we just can't afford to be quiet. If we can influence one person to get out there and vote, own the right that you have. Because, like we said earlier, it's our vote, it's ours to keep, not ours to lose, it's ours to keep. So, yeah, we know this has been a long, ugly political season. We're absolutely acknowledging that. And it feels like politics has almost become entertainment, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
where's the show? Where's it? There's not even a ticket. It's a free show.
Right,
It's a free show for whatever you want, however you want it, whenever you want it,
right,
and which is very sad.
right,
Very, very sad.
right.
It gives you anxiety thinking about it.
I know, and we're all so tired of it. We're all so tired of it, but we can't get so tired that we don't do something. We can't get so tired that we just stay at home, don't exercise again, rights that we have had for over 100 years, but not necessarily enacted appropriately, but we've had that right. And if we don't get out and exercise it, we're just feeding into it. We're just feeding into it because we know the truth. We know the truth, and we know that we have a clear choice. But we don't have a clear choice if we don't exercise it, if we don't get out and do something about it. And I kind of have a saying in my family, if you don't vote, then you can't complain. You can't complain about anything if you don't vote, regardless to what direction you vote, even though I do secretly do think about that.
I really have issue with my younger folks in my family. They do mostly. I would say they do 95% of what grandma or mom says. But
Yeah,
when it comes to voting, it's like, why should I? It's not going to change anything. And it's like, yes, it will. Yes, it will. So
yeah.
I'm just gonna have to do something different for the next governor's race or something. It's bad enough that I moved from a blue state to a red state. It's totally different, and I'm still suffering from that anxiety. But just for them not to vote at all is just
It's not acceptable. No.
yeah, yeah. I realize they still vote in firehouses and garages, but that's okay. That's okay. It's one
Right,
time.
right.
that,
It's just not acceptable to say, and maybe reminding them that it affects everything you do in your everyday life, how your money is spent, whether you get resources for disasters, who talks for you, who represents you. And I tell you, I'm just not happy at all that we are that we are willing to accept someone that lies on a regular basis, exhibits all kind of vulgar behavior, that somebody, in my opinion, that shouldn't even be on the ballot, twice impeached, multiple indictments. You can just go on and on and on. And I'm just saying that I'm in the camp there that, I think we're better. We are far, we are far better than this. And it takes every single one of us to make sure that this does not
well, they
happen.
can solve that problem by becoming a polling place. I mean, Grandma got quick answer for that. Just become a polling place.
Yeah,
You don't have to go anywhere.
yes,
Just,
that is true. That
but
is true.
that's just my logic.
That is true. We just have to
But
stop being so complacent, that somebody else will take care of that. Oh, that won't happen to me because somebody else won't let that happen. Well, I hate to tell you, but I think that somebody else is you, you and me. That's the somebody else.
yeah,
That is
don't beat them, join them. So
Hey, really, really. And if I sound like if we sound like we're on a soapbox, yeah, we are.
yeah.
We are on a
And
soapbox.
I don't think that we are so far. I
I
think that
do.
we are concerned for our communities, for
Yeah,
our country, for those that are coming up behind us, for
right,
those that we don't even know that are coming up behind us. What
right.
are they going to have? I wonder what my granddaughters, what type of husband will she have? Or,
Right,
what will her daughter, whenever, if she has a
right,
daughter, what will he be like? That's what I'm concerned about. It's about the generations
right,
after the now. If we keep this complacency going on, then nobody will be voting. I mean,
right.
that's far fetched, but um,
What will they care about?
I
What will
say
they
the
care about them?
not all the right people will be voting. I'll put it like that. So,
Yeah, and all these people that are saying they're undecided. It's like, are you kidding me? Really kidding me? Are you
well,
really?
I think there's a lot of fear that goes with that, and telling somebody what you decided could lead to a lot of things. So maybe
Maybe,
I'm
perhaps,
just giving an option. Maybe people just aren't ready to give it up like they used to because they don't know what's going to happen.
maybe. Maybe, but I'm saying I just can't imagine anybody not having, this closest we are to the actual date of decision, saying that I'm still undecided. So I hear that and I just laugh out loud because I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Really?
Mm-hmm.
But I also respect the right that everyone has the right to make their decision and choose, whoever. But don't give me this undecided business. I just am not buying it. Not buying it.
Perhaps maybe it's because I'm in the red state that I'm in that it
See?
appears I'm not saying where, but I'm just saying red state. I moved from a blue state to a red state, so I'm in shock. Is that it seems to be very quiet. And maybe I'm not, I know I've been
Interesting.
ill and stuff like that, but even on TV or whatever, the messages come through, but they come through at random times.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a little scary. It's a
Right.
little scary. It's like, okay,
Well, maybe it's a calm before that you get that big last push. Maybe that's it.
well, there's some other thoughts I could put around it, and we'll talk about that, you and me. I won't put it on the podcast, but
Okay. Okay.
I think that it is important that everybody really take time to just review their ballots
Yeah,
carefully before they go. Review their address,
right.
and if it's not the address, maybe they can go to their old address and just vote and avoid some of the issues.
So in
Did
other
you
words,
have some other
know
things
what's
that you wanted to remind them?
yeah, yeah, just in our parting message, just in our parting message. And since you brought up ballots, it sounds like what you're recommending and suggesting to people is to be familiar with their ballots. Be familiar with the instructions, where you have to sign, where you have to date it, especially if you're doing a mail-in. Mail-in balloting has already started in a lot of areas, and we've got listeners all over the place. So know what's going on. Know the rules for your state. Know the rules for your county. Know the rules when it comes to how you turn your ballot in. Know all those rules as you're developing your plan, your vote plan. I'm sure you guys have heard this phrase before. Have a voting plan. Know what you're going to do. Know when you're going to do it. Know how you're going to do it. Help people. If you've got, especially older family members that are voting by ballot, help them. Help them understand what they're supposed to do. We don't want to give any reasons for ballots to be tossed aside and not counted. So help them understand what it is they're supposed to do.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that Judd, we didn't talk about it, just reflection of some of the kind of things that they're talking about is that one of the things, because I mentioned that it seems like a lot of people are undecided or they have fear, is to move forward. We need to move forward for our country, for our community, and for ourselves. And of
Right.
course, we have to move on for that dash between the lines. So,
Absolutely.
we got to keep moving.
Yep. So there's a lot within our control, a lot within our influence. I just want everybody out there, every listener and every person's influence that you have to know that our votes do count. Because you're not just voting for at the top of the ticket for the president. We've also got state people running for state office, people running for local counties and city offices. So we've got all of these things that you need to have a say in and you want to have a say in because these people that are being elected for city and county school boards, they're deciding what your children learn in school. They are deciding what books are in the libraries and what lesson plans the teachers can develop. They are deciding these things. And I can almost guarantee you that you probably aren't going to agree with a lot of the things that they're going to propose. So take the time, read your material, know who you're voting for. Mark your ballot before you get to the voting booth. That'll not only save you time, but it also will help you be more prepared so that you're
Right.
not standing there reading through the ballot trying to figure out what this means and what that means. Be prepared. That's all part of having a voting plan. Be prepared for when you're actually there and what you're going to do. And then
It's
too,
important. It's so important to
uh,
show your support and to make your mark. You are important, so let's make our mark.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is not a reality show, this whole political campaign. Might feel like that at times, but it is not. And it has all of our futures in its hands. It really does. So, listeners, that's our program for today. We just hope that you've gained even one thing or heard even one thing that inspires you to get out there and do something, to take some action. On behalf of Dr. Sharla and myself, we also ask you to be grateful. Take stock of what you already have, what you've already achieved versus what you don't have. Just consider how very good your life is already and be ever so grateful for that. So, on behalf of Dr. Sharla and myself, again, we want to say that we know this podcast isn't for everybody.
Thank you.
And it is for a lot of somebodies. So our Nanaism today is from a civil rights hero who was a noted Georgia congressman who marched right alongside with Dr. King, most notably across the Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, for the right to vote. Our Nanaism today is a quote from John Lewis, and it's never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in some good trouble, necessary trouble. Again, get in some good trouble. So that's our episode for today. We want to thank you for listening.
Thank you. Come again.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Wise Black Nanas. New programs of Wise Black Nanas are on the 1st and 15th of each month. Listen in as you learn more about Wise Black Nanas, Dr. Sharla Walker and Joanne Early. They are everyday nanas. They are not famous, not celebrities or rich, well, rich in life and its experiences. We want you to come back. Tell your friends. So, look for Wise Black Nanas podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Learn more about them and the coaching services they offer at www.wiseblacknanas.com.